Hey folks, I'm Brian LaRosa, and welcome to LaRosa's Trains. What you're hearing in this video is my first audio commentary of a model train show. In this case, it's the annual Rockville Lions Club show, which is located at a senior center in Rockville, Maryland. Please note, if you're not interested in listening to my commentary, you can still watch this video without the narration. Just go to its description and click on the link to view the unnarrated version. My commentary starts now. I've been going to this event almost every year since 2015, and I think there were a couple of times that I did not attend the show. The first was in 2017 when I went to the one in Damascus, Maryland, which is where I live. Unfortunately, there has been no Damascus Train Day planned since that year. The other time I didn't go to Rockville was, of course, during the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, as that caused most events to be canceled. Anyway, let's talk about the first train layout built by an N-scale group called Northern Virginia N-Trek. As you can see, this layout is very well detailed from a scenery standpoint. There are some houses and commercial buildings, everything you would see in a small town. The first train is a Penn Central freight pulled by two electromotive general-purpose diesel locomotives. Now here's something totally unique. It's an American locomotive company, Alco PA diesel, painted in the gold and silver version of the Santa Fe Railway's war bonnet scheme. It's pulling a double-decker passenger train called the El Capitan. Next comes an Amtrak Superliner train with 3 units, 2 General Electric P-42 DCs in the railroad's 50th anniversary heritage schemes, and 1 GE-832 BWH in the ordinary Phase 5 livery. In a few minutes, you'll be chasing both the Santa Fe and Amtrak trains, because I particularly like these attractively painted diesels on this layout. They're so outstanding that I just couldn't resist seeing them. It's interesting to see 2 different bi-level passenger trains on the same layout. This area must be an oil refinery. Every layout needs an industry, of course.
I think it's very specific to
Pretty nice desert scenery in this quarter of the layout, don't you think? And here's some contact info from NV N-Trek. Here are some random small town buildings, as well as the wonderful Japanese buildings in front of a mountain backdrop. This sign says that N-Trek celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2011, and now this organization is 31 years old as of this video. Lots of trees and other greenery on top of the tunnel. I'm not sure what this field is. Probably a rice farm or something. Here's the backdrop of the famous Mount Fuji in Japan. This area was designed by Cotton Bowen. The neighboring area is Sushi Express, created by the same designer. Here's a look at a small railroad line with a trestle bridge, but I don't think there are any trains that are running through. If they do operate on this line, I would have wanted to shoot footage of it. As we go around the bend, we approach a commercial area with several fast food restaurants, including Starbucks Coffee, Krispy Kreme Donuts, Pizza Hut, 7-Eleven, and McDonald's. The drive-through area was created by Mike Rothge. Now we're back to where we started. Unfortunately, this sign you're looking at doesn't look legible in this picture quality. One of these days I do need a high-definition camera. Maybe this year I will, for sure. Here's the first of my favorite trains running around the N-track layout. Again, this is the Santa Fe Alco PA locomotive in the gold bonnet paint scheme. And yes, it is based on a real train that was launched in early 1960 as part of General Electric's special advertising campaign in Southern California. The consist included Santa Fe PA unit number 53, followed by 1 baggage car and 3 lounge cars. These coaches had gold trucks, as did the locomotive. The campaign lasted for only a few weeks, and the Alco PA was then repainted back to the normal red and silver war bonnet scheme. The second train I followed is led by 2 specially painted Amtrak 50th Anniversary Heritage Diesels. The first unit is painted in the Phase 6 scheme, which was oddly never applied to any locomotive up until last year. The second unit is in the normal Phase 5 livery, but with the 50th Anniversary logos. My personal favorite Amtrak Heritage scheme is the Dash 8 style Phase 3, aka a Pepsi can. I couldn't find anything like this at the show, but at least I found the Dash 8 locomotive, albeit in Phase 5. This is a smaller N-scale layout in a different room of the Rockville Senior Center. First up is a storm cloud with lightning flicker effects and thunder sounds. Very cool. Here's an engine house with a locomotive inside. The first train I caught on this layout is a freight pulled by a Union Pacific 4664 Challenger steam locomotive in a Greyhound paint scheme, along with 2 yellow auxiliary water tenders. The next structure is the Train Watchers restaurant with one tiny goof. The word restaurant on the sign is missing the letter T at the end, but no big deal. Passing by a demolished structure, we see a burning building with the interior fire flicker and an imitation smoke cloud. There's a haunted house with 2 graveyards and some spooky sound effects. Two electromotive F units are carrying a Canadian National passenger train with a beaver tail observation car at the rear. Here we are at an HO scale train layout located in the same room as the Northern Virginia N-track layout. I like the coal train led by an EMD SD50 locomotive painted in an early CSX scheme called the Stealth or Gray Ghost. This significantly contrasted with the more common Yellow Nose 2 or Bright Future scheme as seen on the GP38-2 unit trailing behind. There are a lot of coal hoppers with logos of CSX's predecessors, such as the Chessie system and the Seaboard system. Another train is a short, double-stack intermodal pulled by a Norfolk Southern SD40-2. Next is a Milwaukee Road passenger train headed by a pair of streamlined EMD E units with a separate steam generator car. It appears to be running on the same track as the NS intermodal. I assume those model railroaders knew that they had to keep their trains at a reasonable speed so they wouldn't run into each other. Very nicely detailed girder bridge crossing over a river. This Conrail unit sitting there is another GP38-2. We pass by a countryside with a string of coal hoppers and boxcars, followed by a Reading caboose. There are a couple of sidings, one of which has a water tower. I like the 2 open rack automobile carriers, which used to be in service on many railroads before being replaced by the more common corrugated autoracks. There's a yard with a lot of classic cap unit diesels, as well as a single General Electric ET44AC in Norfolk Southern paint. I think the steam locomotive pulling a freight train is articulated, but you can't see its wheel arrangement in this angle. I'm sorry. We see a railway express agency building, an ideal industry to carry express parcels around the layout. This is an abbreviated area of a busy street with some bigger buildings, including a graceful train station with an animated Chicago and Northwestern Railroad logo on top. Here's a brief look at some train action underneath the street. A CSX ET44 diesel is idling with a string of boxcars. As sort of a no-brainer, my very favorite part of the HO scale layout is the mighty GE AC6000CW diesel, painted in CSX's more recent YN3 or Dark Future scheme. Here's a brief look at a vintage C&O 460 steam locomotive. At the train show, I was wearing a t-shirt showing the CSX AC6000 in its original YN2 scheme variation, specifically with yellow lettering instead of blue. This HO scale locomotive was made by Broadway Limited Imports, which is, to my knowledge, the only brand to offer that type in HO. The massive AC6000 passes by the Norfolk Southern ET44, hauling a string of closed-top hoppers. Here's another look at the CSX ET44 number 3415, which displays a special decal of a predecessor called the Georgia Railroad.
Do you like it better?
And now we come to my favorite scale, which is O-gauge. This layout belongs to a 3-rail O-gauge group called the National Capital Trackers. And I honestly thought about becoming a volunteer and joining the club, so it would be super fun if I could bring some of my trains to run on this layout. On this day, you're seeing a nice mix of Lionel and MTH trains, including some from the latter's pre-war style product line called Lionel Corporation Tinplate. There are lots of O-gauge structures all over the place, such as a cinema, a gas station, and a diner that resembles a tinplate passenger car. I like the FedEx building with an animated forklift moving in and out of the facility. It reminds me of a YouTube video uploaded by Eric Siegel, known as Eric's Trains, because he did a review on a Schneider version of this accessory. Both the FedEx and the Schneider buildings were manufactured by Menards, which is perhaps best known for the most inexpensive O-gauge trains on the market. This section of the layout is a bridge that serves as a hinged access barrier for volunteers to get in and out of the center. However, it's much quicker to crawl underneath it in order to save time during the train show. Here are some more structures, like this service station with 3 weird figures. I'm not sure what these are. Coming around the bend, we cross another bridge, and then we see the Lionel Pennsylvania 060 B6 steam switcher as a stationary display, but without its tender. Still more structures. Here's another FedEx forklift building, which was again made by Menards. I remember seeing the Plasticville 5 and dime store from a hobby video. There's a Lionel pendant below the American flag. And this building is probably a town hall. The first O-gauge train I followed is headed by a Lionel Baltimore and Ohio 2884 EM1 steam locomotive, painted in the fictional royal blue livery compared to the black paint used on the real B&O EM1. One of the cool things I like about Lionel is that while most of the legacy-equipped O-scale engines come in prototypical paint schemes, there have also been some decorated in the so-called fantasy schemes, creating a what-if appearance like this. As far as I understand, many legacy engines with those fictional schemes have been pretty good sellers, and I hope there will be more of them in the future. Here's another unusual train running on the National Capital Trackers layout. It's a reproduction of Lionel's pre-war O-gauge Union Pacific City of Denver streamliner made by MTH. This particular version is based on an uncatalogued item that was painted in two-tone green instead of UP's yellow and brown livery. Passing by the streamliner is a freight train pulled by Lionel's custom model of the Santa Fe Bicentennial SD45. In reality, the locomotive wearing this scheme is an SD45-2. This orange electric Lionel Lines number 256 pulls a passenger train of the same color. It's also an MTH reproduction. Across from the O-gauge layout is a solarium where the pre-war standard gauge layout was set up. First we see a custom-built model of an early 19th century steam locomotive with a chuffing buzzer. This black steam engine is the number 1134, originally made by Ives, and the blue electric carries one of American Flyer's most famous trains, the President Special. In 2015, I filmed the chromium-plated Mayflower passenger set on the same layout. The Mayflower is the more expensive version of the President Special and was originally priced at $150, twice as much as the blue passenger set. That amount was a whole lot of money during the 1920s and 30s. The layout has two interactive accessories for visitors to play with. The first is a stationary air whistle, while the other is a railroad crossing bell. This is a plain looking G-gauge layout with only a few trains running, so there wasn't much for me to film. However, I like the model of Thomas the Tank Engine, which appears to be scratch built for G-gauge. It's not running today, in case you're curious. A little later, a Shea locomotive has started pulling a Rio Grande freight train. Watch the busy action from the vertical drive rods as they turn the gears to move the Shea's wheels. We don't usually see a Rio Grande caboose colored green. Very interesting. Z-scale, the tiniest model trains ever made. This layout was built by the Washington, D.C. chapter of Z-Bend Track. Our first train passing through the crossing is a Bud Rail diesel car.
That's the truth, too.
Then along came a single Southern Pacific Jeep with no train behind, and a quartet of F units pulling the bi-level El Capitan.
Okay, let's see if I can go.
There's a coal train hauled by a CSX SD70 ACE and two City Rail ES44 ACs. I'll give a closer look at that in a few minutes. We pass by a circus, which is where its music comes from. Look at this drive-in movie theater in Z-scale. The tiny working screen is connected to a DVD player that's hidden underneath the layout.
Southern Pacific with torpedo kids. I was gonna pull around with it, but then you end up pulling all of them. Yeah. I'm actually thinking now that the noise is done, this seems to work. Not if they're gonna come back with lunch though. Yeah. Are you just running?
I like the spinning wind turbines, which are always environmentally friendly, although I doubt that they produce any electricity to the trains on this layout.
So I said, I'll see if it runs. Got anything to put behind the Southern Pacific?
We end up at a yard where we can see a turntable and roundhouse.
Oh, I know what we've been looking at. Well, that was a real train. You like passenger trains? And you see that one train with the windows that are different?
We're back at the area near the circus because I needed to film the other side of the layout. This is some kind of construction or mining area. Here's the circus again. And here's the movie theater again. During my visit, the Z-scale modelers played Disney's Frozen, which reminds me of a Lionel Ogage Ready to Run train set decorated with the film's characters. I think it was first cataloged a couple of years ago. The autumn foliage just looks beautiful on a train layout. I don't recall seeing scenery like this on any other layout. We're back at the wind turbines, next to a desert area with a cool looking gorge for trains to pass through.
We have a bingo player. Right. What's your favorite? Your favorite? Okay. You know what H stands for? There you go. Horribly overpowered.
A pair of CSX diesels are hauling the Tropicana juice train. By the way, this year was Z-Bend Track's first return to the Rockville train show since the pandemic because they were unable to attend last year's show. Here's another look at the coal train with the city rail units. The last segment we come to in this video is a Lego train layout built by a club based in the DC metropolitan area. As you view this display, I want to mention several closing notes before we reach the end. First of all, although I needed to record as much footage of the Rockville train show as possible, I also wanted to spend some time talking with fellow hobbyists, which is still my favorite part of going to an event like this. To be honest, I don't think I have any friends who are exactly into trains, but I still believe there will always be younger generations to join the hobby. And I am super happy there are quite a lot of young folks who enjoy trains as much as I do. And second of all, like I said, I truly wish I can join the National Capital Trackers next year, since I prefer O gauge. However, if that doesn't work for some reason, I'm thinking of displaying some of my favorite train DVDs for visitors to watch. All I need to bring is a portable disc player or a laptop computer and a nice selection of DVDs I will be playing. But I must make sure to notify the Rockville Senior Center a few months in advance before next year's show.
It's not like this is the nose cone to this specific airplane and it's this big. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could play Bob Man to make a bullet from train the nose cones from airplanes, but like it's still, they were making a lot of pieces that were just like, you can't use this for anything else.
Yeah, they're making more.
Yeah.
There's something like I didn't even roll my flashlight. I don't know that I rolled my flashlight. Why did you even roll my flashlight?
That was one of the ones that looked at. I'm like, I needed a 1x5 plate, but I can't remember what I needed it for. But I'm like, there's been situations in the past where I needed it. I think I did. They had that 1x5. They did actually have a 1x5 plate.
Look at this beautiful display of a Disney park with Cinderella's castle and the Haunted Mansion.
The middle stud was a Technic axle.
This wouldn't be a good theme park without a train.
Yeah, I used it for a roof of a car, and it to hold together with the rest of it. It was connected with so many people that actually it was to hold the roof structure together, and it was basically the bottom of another plate piece. I took a piece of Lego pneumatic tubing, cut it really small, stuffed the little peg on the bottom of a one wide plate, the little peg on the bottom. I jammed it on.
Well, that concludes my video of the 2022 Rockville Lions Club Train Show. I hope you've enjoyed my commentary of this program, and hopefully I'll upload more videos mixed with my narration in the near future, so keep an eye out for them. Until then, thanks for watching and listening. I'm Brian LaRosa, and I'll see you next time.